I actually, if we take it all the way back, I spent the first 2 years of my life living in Israel, but I was born in London. My mum and dad, they wanted to live in Israel. My dad couldn't make his business work out there. So we ended up actually moving back when I was 2 years old. Uh, Fast forward a few years, at age 5, my dad moved back to Manchester, and he pretty much spent most of his time there. And that's when stuff really sort of got hard for me, my mom, my brother, and my sister, kind of financially speaking, down in London. So much so to the point that my mom actually had to go on benefits, which in the US is the equivalent of welfare. Um, but that pretty much saved us. We were on benefits for a decade, uh, and we lived off £90 per week. So it's about what, like 100, just about 100, $110 or so a
Mm.
week. And then my mum was able to earn an extra £50, and she was a piano teacher. She's an incredibly gifted, classically trained pianist. Um, and I guess we kind of owe our life to music, because that's what enabled us to get that extra £50 a week. That, I guess if you add it all up, we were living off about £600 a month less. Family of four. It wasn't easy. And what's even more insane about the whole thing, that just doesn't fit the narrative in any way, but was really formative for me, was that when I was 4, before my dad left and moved to Manchester, my parents really cared about education, and they enrolled me into a private school, right? And my grandfather had passed away a couple years before that when I was 2, and he had left just enough money for my mum to keep me in that private school until I was 10, until I was able to move to a state school, which is obviously state sponsored and free. Um, but as I said, that was a huge part of what kind of has made me who I am, because what I ended up finding myself is, I was a young kid with a family on benefits, on government benefits, living off £600 a month, and I was surrounded by people that could afford private school, and they seemingly had everything that I wanted, but nothing that I had. And you had these kids with nice houses, and from a naive child's perspective, they had seemingly functional families. I mean, looking back on it, it's funny to think, how dysfunctional they probably were. But when I was going around there, at least to their houses, it seemed to be everything that I didn't have when I went home to my reality. So the net there is that I actually became this like massively insecure kid, not only socially, but food insecure, financially insecure. But I think that was the as I said, like the formation of Harry Hurst, the hungry, ambitious immigrant entrepreneur. I think it can like really be attributed to those times, those formative years. I saw the world for what it really is, because the world's a tough place. You're not wrapped up in cotton wool. So I think I had very early exposure to what it would be like to have to fend for yourself. And I think that's a trait that every successful entrepreneur really needs, because effectively you're battling against the rest of the world. So I wouldn't have realized it at the time, but retrospectively, I can certainly say that's what it gave me for sure.
So why entrepreneurship? Why do you think that was something that you gravitated towards? Like, I haven't heard anything yet in your formative years that you would necessarily think would drive you into that. What was your path to getting that?
So I think I was always an entrepreneur. I've never had a real job. I didn't really have a choice, growing up. I had to, as I mentioned, we weren't living off much money. So anything that I had in my teenage years, I kind of had to hustle for. And all of the cliche normal things I did, selling on eBay, setting up those kind of stores. And even going back earlier, my father is still to this day, he still does the same thing and always was an entrepreneur. He never really had a job, at least during my lifetime, as long as I was alive. He was always doing his own thing, mostly in the fashion business, in the rag trade, as we call it in the UK. And
Schmutter trade, mate.
the schmutter business, yeah, the schmutter
That's
business.
exactly what my dad was in as well.
Yeah, but my dad, my dad tried to find his feet in that business, and he tried to play in really big leagues. He was really ambitious, and you know, he ended up building, a very humble business in the markets, and not the financial markets that I play in today, but the traditional markets as we know them in the UK, where you set up your stall and you sell clothes. I mean, he chose to sell clothes. You could sell anything that's legal. And he still does that to this day, bless him. He gets up really early in the morning, and that's his passion. He loves going and just dealing with the people. And he, brought me from approximately the age of 8. I used to spend summers with him. And he would bring me onto the market stalls. And these are not, my dad lives in Manchester, right? So we were going to the ends of the country, places that, most of the listeners to your podcast probably haven't even heard of. Really small little villages across the UK. So from a very early age, I was, exposed to not only learning how to sell and deal with people from all different walks of life, but also to the reality that this kind of like bubble that I lived in London was not necessarily full and final. There's other people out there living very, very different lives. So I owe a lot of that to him as well, in bringing me every summer, not only to be able to earn a little bit of extra money with him, but to be able to kind of learn how to confidently sell and deal with people from all walks of life.